everybody, it's Chris and it's a beautiful day, yap, and hopefully solve your problems of boredom by watching me. Okay, the ship Sydcarmy from The Bear, Sydney and Carmy, and from X-Files, Mulder and Scully, they are similar. Sydcarmy is the modern day Scully and Mulder. Mulder comes from a very broken down family. He's pretty much a loner and his parents are presumably divorced. Dana Scully is a Catholic girl. She comes from a conservative background. She just came from a very loving household. And Sydney doesn't really come from a broken family. She has a loving dad and she was an only child, and her dad was like such a supportive parent. So she comes from a pretty good family dynamic, in my opinion, with her father. Carmy is a very lonely person. He's very driven in his passions for cooking as well, and more skills when it comes to the behind the scenes, like coming up with meals, where, like I said, Sydney is good in the front lines of things, which is just running the kitchen during opening night. So that's what separates Sydney and Carmy, but they have a shared passion, for cooking. Sydney also has a passion for like helping other people, and she's very like nurturing, I would say. And I think the same thing with Scully's, like Scully's very nurturing as well. So that's something that they share. Scully and Mulder's dynamic from the beginning, it's very similar to Sydcarmy's dynamic. One thing that really works for the both of these pairings is that the plot isn't focused on their relationship. The plot is focused on literally just the plot. For X-Files, it's like sci-fi, aliens, stuff like that. Subplot is their relationship, but the main plot is just them fighting crime. And similar to that, in The Bear is with Sydcarmy, the subplot is their relationship, and then the main plot is them running the kitchen and culinary world. And that's what makes it so more authentic to see these relationships grow throughout the series so far, is like they grow organically because there's no romantic pressure and there's no forced romances between the two pairings. Even with Scully and Mulder, yes, in the beginning kind of flirted with each other, but there was no forced romantic pairings between them, and their relationship was allowed to grow organically as the story progressed. This is the same thing with Sydney and Carmy. Their relationship has been allowed to grow organically as the plot progressed. I think what's so interesting with both stories, in The Bear and in X-Files, Mulder's pretty much a loner. He's very to himself. He doesn't think he needs anyone. And it isn't until their partners, respective partners,
I've been assigned to work
Sydney, Scully, come into the picture, where their entire worldview is just blown out the water of them constantly being alone and thinking that they only have to rely on themselves. And because they have such damaged family values, these two characters, Mulder and Carmy, in Carmy's case, I just don't think he feels okay to be vulnerable with anyone, and maybe also in Mulder's case as well. Then they meet people who bring out different sides to them and who are their soulmate in the way that they complete what that other person needs. So in Mulder's case, what he always needed was Scully, because she was the person to always kind of rescue him when he needed the saving, and also be that skeptical person in his life to kind of humble him for believing in aliens too much. Dana Scully for Mulder is like that reality check. Like, she keeps him in reality and keeping him grounded, that they're not always gonna find something weird going on. Sydney brings him joy in the kitchen that he's lost because he's been abused, and a lot of the joy of working and cooking food has been taken away from him. Sydney, who has a more fresh perspective, who has a more innocent perspective of cooking and has such more light for cooking, balances out his darkness that he holds for cooking and his trauma that he holds for cooking, if that makes sense. So they're balancing each other out and giving each other something, but they both creatively work together to, even though they're like so different. Like I said, like Sydney's kind of like a leader and she works really well under a kitchen, and she's very nurturing. Sydney's very nurturing. Carmy is very cold and very stern when it comes to mentoring other people. They give each other kind of that balance, similar to Scully and Mulder, because Mulder gets to be the optimist, whereas Scully gets to be the reality check. So beautiful about their relationships respectively, and why I say that Sydcarmy is like the modern day Scully and Mulder is Sydcarmy is just so connected with each other. Like, it's so about, they're so zoned in on each other, and it's always kind of about their partnership in the story, you know. Like, obviously the plot, their partnership is a subplot, but you know, when it comes to like Carmy and Sydney, they just have this connection where they understand each other in ways others just can't. I mean, they have their sign language thing going on, and even if you go back to their scene that they had when they were cooking in the kitchen and they were coming up with ideas, you could tell that they were just instinctually reading each other's minds and just working so well together when they actually were on the same page. Obviously in season 3 things take a turn, but when they're on the same page they really connect with each other fully. And if you think about Scully and Mulder, even though Scully and Mulder usually in the beginning of an episode are not on the same page, when they are on the same page they work so well together. And so there's the similarities between those two pairings. And ever since I watched like The Bear, I didn't have this thought at first, but I just felt like there's something so much about Sydcarmy's dynamic that just resembles Scully and Mulder. I can't even explain it. Like there's just something in that Sydcarmy dynamic that just brings me back to when I'm watching X-Files, when Scully and Mulder interact. The funniest thing about this is that they are such two different pairings, and like Scully and Mulder are so different in my opinion from like Sydney and Carmy as characters, but there's just something so similar in the two pairings. I can't place it. If anyone else can place it in the comments and let me know what you think. The way that Carmy's always looking at Sydney when she isn't looking at him, and vice versa, how Carmy is so in tune with Sydney in season 2, Mulder and Scully, and how in tune they are throughout the series with each other as well. Like Mulder can tell when Scully's upset, Scully can tell when Mulder's off. So it's like you could tell that these two are just partners. These two pairings are just really close with each other and partners. And I just think it's so funny too how like Mulder and Carmy are like loners who feel like they don't need anyone, both of them. As soon as Sydney and Scully come into their lives, they're doing everything that they can for that other person. Like Scully tries to leave their dynamic or leave the team, and he's like,
"You saved me." As difficult and as frustrating as it's been sometimes, your goddamn strict rationalism and science have saved me 1,000 times over. You kept me honest. You made me a whole person. I don't know if I want to do this alone. I don't even know if I can.
If you think about Carmy and Sydney in the table scene, he's basically telling her again, when
do this without me.
I couldn't do it without you.
Yeah, you could.
I wouldn't even want to do it without you. You know, you make me better at this.
Oh my god, the parallels between the two pairings. Meetings with each other, like Sydney and Carmy meeting, Scully and Mulder meeting, are very similar. I want this to be an open conversation. I hope people see this. Like this is so important to me. Like I just need to talk about this because I just think it's crazy to me, the parallels. I think what makes
if I just like
Sydney and Carmy feel like the modern day
completely
Scully and Mulder is just
like
the unwavering loyalty and love that they have for each other, like immediately. Like Sydney, when she comes into Carmy's life, his life is changed forever. He knows that he's found someone that is his person. Like he might not know it automatically, but like you could just tell how much Sydney is vital in his life, of the way that Sydney and Carmy interact, because it's something so unique and special. Most of Sydney and Carmy's scenes are very intimate, and I feel like that's similar to like Mulder and Scully. Cinematography, the choices that these editors make to film Sydney and Carmy scenes are very telling, and it just makes you, it's elaborated to the audience in the way that they film the scenes between Sydney and Carmy, that they have this really deep connection, and it's just so focused on their connection to each other. And it just shows, it's supposed to show you without telling you that their connection is just so intertwined with them being with each other. Like it feels very much of a dynamic like us against the world, and Scully and Mulder definitely feel like that dynamic throughout all 9 seasons of X-Files. Like tell me what you guys think in the comments. I'm gonna end it here. Like I hope you guys enjoyed this. I just really wanted to get this message out because I just love Sydney and Carmy from The Bear, and then I love Mulder and Scully from X-Files. Let me know if you guys see these similarities as well.